Hello everybody, and hopefully welcome back. If you joined me last time, we finished putting in where the pumpkins and the leaves are in this painting next to me, and that means that we have now put everything in this painting where it's going to go, and all we're missing are the details to make it look just right. If you missed it, no big deal. I'm going to throw the links in the description for the last couple of videos. You can follow this painting from start to finish. We have just a couple of sessions left with this painting as we finish up, and I hope that you're excited to get started. I'm really excited for you guys to have an end product if you've been following along, or even just to enjoy how a cool painting like this comes together. So, all of that being said, let's create!
Here we go. We are starting with leaves today, and please pardon me if it looks like I am chewing on something. The second trimester of pregnancy is supposed to be awesome, but at 18 weeks, I can tell you that it can suck just as much. Nausea still going strong, so if you are dealing with this and you're out there, I have found that chewing peppermint gum helps a lot. So that is what I'm doing. I either do that or suck on hard candies. But as far as this awesome painting goes that we are working on, back to the leaves, I am putting in the veining. And before you think that it's going in really thickly, this is not the final veining we're doing. We are going to do these leaves in a couple of different steps. So right now, I am just showing you this darker color because we're going to put in a lighter color that's really going to pop when we do the actual veins of the leaves. And if you look at reference photos of different leaves, you will see that they have a lot of different color variation in them, from places that the leaves look like they're kind of folded in on the veins, to the edges where they're lighter, that you can already see we have that in place. So these lines are purposefully going in a lot thicker than what you would put in kind of your tiny little leaf veins as. So don't forget that you can do things in layers when you see all these different colors happening, and that is how a lot of different looks are achieved, is step by step. They're not done all at once. And you can also see that I am doing shorter strokes. I'm not quite doing the long strokes that I was using to get both the pumpkins and the leaves in, those nice long confident strokes that we want. And that's because I've moved to a smaller round brush to make the lines easier. That comes with a caveat. When you size down your brushes, it is going to hold less material. If you are working with watercolor, it's going to hold less water. If you're working with acrylic here, like we're working, it's going to hold less paint. Whether that's just paint, it's paint in a medium, the bristles just don't hold as much. So to avoid getting dry brushing and to not have solid lines, don't be afraid to keep loading up your brush when you see it running out. Try to use a smooth stroke for as much as possible, and then go ahead and grab some more paint, because that's what's happening when you start seeing it feathering out, is your brush is just running out of paint, and that's going to happen the smaller sized brush that you go. So just remember, smaller brush, less bristles, it's going to hold less medium, whatever that medium is that you are working with. That's just kind of the rule of thumb, so expect to be dipping your paintbrush a lot more if you're wanting those smooth lines. We are using a darker green for those green leaves, just kind of an orangey tone for the red ones, and then we'll be using a yellow when we work on the tan leaves, which are still a little bit more pink than what I wanted, but we're also going to be throwing a wash over all of these leaves. So stick with me here as we get through each of these steps, and we will tackle them one by one. And oops, I misspoke. We will be putting a yellow on the tan leaves in both the form of veining and a wash, but I'm using a darker color. Again, these colors are going on these leaves to make the vein colors pop. I really want them to come out, and I've noticed that in a lot of leaves where you have kind of the creases in the leaf where the veins are, is that there's a darker color there. It just adds an extra glint to the leaf. Sometimes there's a lighter color. It almost looks like Mother Nature's own way of showing off, and look at all the pretty things that I do. You do, Mother Nature. You make a lot of really gorgeous things, which is why I want to use them in paintings. Just a reminder that between each of these steps today, we're doing the leaves all in this video. However, between the veining and kind of this thicker, we'll call it shadowing that we're putting on the leaves right now, between these two steps, you're going to want to let them dry, and kind of like last time where I was bouncing between different areas of the painting. Always a good trick because acrylic does dry super quickly, but don't be afraid to walk away from your painting for a little while and give it some extra dry time in between each of these steps, so that when we go and put veining on in the next step, we're going to have to use a lot of paint and a lot of water to get a really good mixture. We'll be using a script liner, and that means I don't want to mess up the layers that are beneath it. So dry time, kind of bounce around your painting and it should work really well for you. So here we are zoomed in. All of these leaves are going to get white at first, and that is so that I can make the color that I want for each of them to pop, because we will be using a semi-transparent color. With paint already laid down on the canvas, that's not going to cover anything without being opaque. So the white is a handy little tool. We come in here, add some details that weren't there before. We'll be able to go back in with another color over top of that, and that color is actually going to show up because we kind of added that negative space for it to be able to shine. And this is just a small script liner brush. Same rule of thumb, we went to an even smaller brush. So you are going to be dipping it in the paint a lot. I think I dip it for just about every stroke. And when you're doing these little veins, it works the same thing for branches, for anything kind of natural growing out of each other. Where it's coming from is going to be the thickest part, and as it reaches out, it's going to become thin. So every time I dip my brush in the paint, and there's always that little kind of like glob of paint on the tip of the brush, I find the best thing to do is to always come back to my stem, come back to my source of where it's growing out from, and I start there. That way, if I have a little bit too much paint on my brush, it's going to wind up making the base thicker and not the outer edges, which would look really weird. I can kind of make a thicker base work because it still looks okay and it's still tapering off. But if I start from the edges of my leaves and try to bring them back towards the base, I could get a glob of paint at the end, and it's just not going to look right because that's not how things grow. It'll look kind of weird. There we go. I've jumped ahead to doing the wash just because this is fine detail work. It's kind of hard to see from afar, but just same thing on all of the leaves. You're going to do that veining. Let it dry. Really important for this step. Again, we're using a lot of water. This is a lot of water, just a little bit of paint, and I'm putting a wash over the whole leaf just to fill in some of that white and also to tint the leaf. It was really important to get the yellow on those tan leaves to take away some of that pinkness, and I am actually really happy with how that color ended up coming out in the final product. After putting the wash on, you don't really have to wait for it to dry too much in between this point because we're using the exact same color, almost the same type of wash, just a little more paint, and back to the script liner. And we are going back over those veins. And this is going to be the last thing that we do to the leaves, which looks really nice. I loved it in the final painting. There are, of course, other ways you could do this. If you had a nice, bright, opaque color, you could skip the step with the white. But this is just the best way that I found to really make sure that color pops no matter what color I have beneath it. And I had some pretty dark colors going on. That's why we used the white first. Just lots of patience. Again, always starting from the base and working out just to get the best line work possible. We are finishing up here, and if you join me next time, we're gonna do the pumpkins, and we are just about done with this painting. I hope that you guys have a lot of fun. Line work can get frustrating, so deep breath, give yourself a lot of room for air. Give yourself just a lot of grace and knowing that you are doing something fun. It doesn't have to be stressful. Mistakes are okay. And just go to town, guys. Have a blast with it and get really creative. I believe in you. This is so fun. Even if you just fill up a whole page with vine work as you're working with your script liner, that's another really great practice thing to use. It can be a little tricky to get right. No rush, no big deal. We've all got a lot of time right now anyways, right? I hope to see you the next time we do this. Again, we're going to be working on the pumpkins. And just stay happy, healthy, and get creative. See you next time. Bye.